he just had a bad feeling. And so, moral of
Mhm.
the story: don't stop for anybody.
Just keep
Yeah.
driving.
Keep
Keep
driving.
driving. And if they start running at about 35 miles per hour, it's
That's
not
a
a human.
clue.
It's not human. It's a clue.
I'm Jess DeCotis.
And I'm Nick Koziol. Welcome to That Sounds Terrifying, the podcast where we share terrifying stories, we share listener experiences, and we visit virtually some of the most haunted places in the United States and the world.
Hello and welcome back to That Sounds Terrifying. We're very excited for this episode today because we are joined by Mitch Wissick, and he is our teacher at our improv class. In our improv class
professor.
of our improv class, yeah, Professor Mitch.
First time anybody's ever called me a professor. Thank you. I'm flattered.
Yeah,
You're welcome,
doctor. Yeah, welcome to the show,
Dr.
Mitch.
Mitch.
Thanks for being here. We're excited to hear your story.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Love the show. Big, long time fan. First time guest.
Very nice. Very nice. We'll give you that $20 later.
So, I pull Mitch into like all of my projects, which is funny. You've been on my TikToks for Buck Wild Luxury, and now you're on That Sounds Terrifying.
I always say, like, to both of you guys, that you're utility players.
Yeah.
I like to use that, right? And that's the I think the biggest compliment, because I had that said about me, like, oh, you're a utility player. Just go in where you need to go. Perfect.
Hive mind, man. Hive mind, because that's exactly what I was going to say. So, like, I don't even have to speak on this episode. This is going to be episode 2 of me not speaking, right? Because Mitch is going to do it for me.
Oh, no.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
So,
so
Mitch,
I mean, just to give us a little background, I mean, Mitch, like, he's the professor of our craft or improv group, and we got to talking, and he said he had some great stories to tell, and we wanted to have him on the show to share them with the rest of the audience. And I honestly didn't even ask too much questions. I like to be surprised. Like, it could be like an Ashley story where it's about Disney. We don't know, and we're all about to be surprised here, right, Jess?
Yes. Yeah, I had no idea. You just were like, Mitch said he's got some stories, and I was like, cool, bring them on. So
I got stories.
Yeah.
Awesome. So do you want to start with the first one? Set us up.
So big Halloween fan, right? And so for like I don't know, like 5 or 6 years, I went to Salem every year, like right before Halloween. And so the first year I'm planning it, this is I would say maybe almost 20 years ago, like 15 years ago, like the first, like 15, 16 years ago. The first time I go, I don't know like where to stay or anything. And I just had heard of the Salem Inn. So I'm like, okay, we'll do some research and we'll book the Salem Inn. So I do it like 6 months in advance and I don't think about it. And then it's getting close, when the trip's coming closer to it, you start doing the research, where we're going to eat. Okay, we're staying here. And I see all these articles about the Salem Inn being haunted. I'm like, oh, it's haunted. All right, let's. So I start delving in on that. I'm like, all right, well, where is it haunted? Maybe I'll get a spooky breakfast out of the deal. And come to find out that there's just one particular room that's haunted, room 17. And so, like, ghost hunters have done like an episode on it, the whole 9 yards. So I start doing more and more research on room 17. I'm like, man, it's really scary, the things that happen in there. And I'll get the more of what happens in that room later. But so I call, because now I'm freaked out a little bit. And my girlfriend at the time's like, well, I hope we're not staying in that room. And I'm like, there's no way. So I just call on a whim. All right. And of course, I'm in room 17.
Very cool.
And they're like, do you not want to stay in this room? They're like, most times people want to stay in it. And I go, I don't know. Like, what happens, the things that I've heard of it. So I start getting now I'm getting freaked out. And they're like, we're fully booked. We could ask somebody to switch with you. And we don't know, this is, 15, 16 years ago. It wasn't as easy as like a booking.com. They were going to call other guests to see if we could switch. And my girlfriend was kind of freaking out. And I was just like, no, it's fine. we'll see how it goes. So fast forward, we get there, and as we're approaching, we get in. As we're approaching the room, it's ice cold. Immediately, I'm like, oh my, it's like the temperature literally drops 20 degrees as we're approaching this room. So now I'm a little freaked out. We just dropped the bags in there, and we decided to go down in the lobby, and then there's the guest book. So then we go back like 5 years into the guest book, and it's all these things about room 17. Woke up in the middle of the night, thought I was getting choked, couldn't breathe, all these things. And so now I'm getting more and more freaked out. we go on a ghost tour, and then we get back, and now she's exhausted. We had a couple of drinks, and I'm notoriously like a light sleeper. It's like an old Victorian style room. There's like a 19-inch crappy like tube TV in this room. There's no updated amenities, and so she passes out. I try to go to sleep. Within a half hour, I'm up, and I see a figure in the room.
Oh,
And now I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So there's like a shadowed figure in the corner, and I get up, and then I try to scream to her, but I can't scream.
mhm.
Nothing comes out as hard as I'm trying. I can feel like my eyes starting to like well up with like tears. I'm so scared. And it's like almost like Abbott and Costello, right? I'm like trying to get it out, nothing comes out. And then finally I turn over to her, look back, and there's nothing there. And so now I sit up, I wake her up. She's freaked out. We both just kind of sit up with the lights on for like an hour, but now we're fighting being tired and freaked out of this room. There's nowhere to go. You know, we're in Salem 5 days before Halloween. We can leave and just go,
Yeah.
you know, to Peabody, Massachusetts. You know, we go to another town. And so we fight it for a little while. We get back to sleep, and then the TV turns on. And then the TV turns off, back on. It keeps happening. We keep on waking up, going back to sleep. And then finally, the whole thing kind of falls apart for me at the end, because I get woken up getting choked at like 4 a.m. And so I completely freak out. We end up going to a hotel in the next town over that night. We didn't stay there the second night, so we only stayed there one day. We couldn't do it. So it was like the most like harrowing. I never was like, okay, yeah, let me see a ghost or whatever. When I was a kid, I was, you know, a creepy little kid who liked horror movies and stuff like that. But, you know, I never thought that a ghost could touch you or make you that afraid, but literally choked at the Salem Inn and terrified all night.
Yeah, that is terrifying, Mitch. I mean, like the last episode, we talked a little bit about like how, you know, at least with ghosts and stuff, there's rules, but maybe I have to reevaluate my assessment.
Yeah, there's not many rules, Nick. I don't know where you're getting that from.
I don't know.
Well, I kind of thought that in my head too, though. You know, you think about that, you're like, oh, they can't hurt you. They're not going to touch you. And from the instant that whatever that was in that room, and they had said that it was if you look up some of the research, I think it was like the ghost of a prostitute that was strangled to death in that room. That's how she died. And so it was definitely like an angry, you could just, as soon as I opened my eyes the first time and saw that figure, I was so terrified.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even anything. It was almost just like a blob. It was like a shadowy blob, like a human form blob, but I was so afraid. It was like it brought along like emotion with it.
Right.
Immediately. And I was like, oh God.
So like it seems like it was all geared towards you too, like towards the male.
Yeah.
For sure.
But you're also probably an empath. Is my guess.
100%. So that my other stories that I had are all about me being empathic to the point of like almost like you know, being like clairvoyant in certain circumstances, which is weird.
Yeah.
So, but I find that a lot of people who are very good at acting and drama, they are empaths, because you need to take on those emotions. And if you can feel other people's emotions, and that's how you play off of other people. And so, yeah, a lot of people in that field, they are clairvoyant, they are empathic, they are intuitive, whether they know
Yeah.
it or not, what they're, like what drops into their head. Creatives usually are very connected. They just might not know it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That
I
is
actually
terrifying.
recently have been getting like more and more like in tune with some of that stuff. When I was a kid, I had my great grandfather died, and I was only
Mhm.
like, like 7 or something like that, and I had like told my mom that he was like passed before that,
Yeah.
like that he was done. Like, oh, I had a dream, and he's going to another place now, and they're like, what? And so like. I had that instance, but like recently, like I'm very with my current significant other, like I'm very connected. Like something could happen to her another state away, and I will know. I will call her and be like, "What's wrong?"
Right.
And, like
Mhm.
I just know what's happening. So it's been really wild recently of that. You say empathic, and I'm like,
Yeah.
am I dialed into something completely different now? It's scary. So
You're
Yeah.
developing your empathic skills, man.
I don't want them sometimes. I don't want them.
Yeah,
Well,
same.
sometimes it does take the change. Like you're going through some interesting personal things in your life, and now you're opening and you're talking to people. I think about those things.
Yeah.
You're opening yourself up, and so you're kind of like channeling some of that energy. It probably was like you just didn't want it at all to feel anything, and you were just pushing it away, pushing it
The
down.
floodgates are open.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
they're open.
Yeah.
They're open to a point where I'm like, man, this is really weird. I don't know why I know that this is happening, but I'm not there right now. But I can tell you what you're doing, or
Yeah.
what's happening.
Yeah. That's really cool though, Mitch.
So,
yeah,
That's cool. Enjoy that ride because you might be able to develop that in a different way. Like I think that, I mean, I like to develop my skills. So when other people are coming into their own, I'm like, yeah, you should explore it.
it is like I like sometimes it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like it's overwhelming, and then other times I don't want to feel like I'll literally, if something's wrong with her especially, I'll get that feel like that feeling like you're going down like a roller coaster or something, that drop in your
Mhm.
stomach, and I'll just be like, oh, it's panic. I know something's wrong, and it will be immediately. I'll call her, and she'll be like, yeah, uh, XYZ just happened. I don't know how you knew that, and we're both like, we're pretty freaked out over it. It's
yeah.
weird,
Well,
but I'm starting. It's starting to get that like that with my kids a little bit too. It's weird. I don't know. I've what was that movie with what the heck with Barbarino there with John Travolta? You
oh
remember
yeah,
like they thought that he was like uh a genius or something like that, right?
phenomenon.
And phenomenon, right? He
Yep.
just had like I had a brain tumor. That's what I said the other day. I go, something's happening where I know what's happening a state away. Do I have a brain tumor?
Yeah.
I'm
Let's hope
hoping
not.
I'm just very empathic.
Yeah.
I think you are. I don't think it's
Yeah,
a
I think
brain
that's what
tumor.
it
I
is
mean, I'm
too.
not a doctor, but
All right,
I
but
play one sometimes on the stage.
I did pay you $50, and so
you could pay me $50 and I'll tell you don't have a brain tumor.
great. You did take my independent health card.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've shared on the show that like we have kind of a similar thing in the empathic stuff, like where my grandfather passed away, and I knew at
Yeah.
that moment, and then got the phone call and kind of just immediately blurted that out to my mom. It's like, oh, grandpa passed away. So I can relate to that, and it sounds like you're getting like everything all coming in at once, like you said, the floodgates are open, right?
It's way intense now, and I think I have been like closed up from like I was in
Yeah,
I was going through my own personal thing. I'm going through a divorce now and everything else, but I was very closed off and kind of like
yeah,
what wasn't in tune to emotions through then, and now it's like everything's coming at me.
all bets are
Everything's
off.
emotional. I'm crying
Yeah.
at Hallmark commercials. It's awful.
You're like, why is Home Alone 2 making me weep like this? Leave
It's
Kevin
really sad
alone.
when the spider gets loose. I was like, how is that spider gonna live? Poor tarantula.
Awesome.
I don't know. I hate that spider.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that spider on. I don't like spiders, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
Things like a
It's
dog.
that was a
it's a
recent
living
question
creature.
on Terrifying Tuesday. You got spiders, bats, sharks and I don't know what else I said.
New,
But
new horror unlocked.
yeah.
Yeah. So, Mitch, I heard you do, so, I read tarot and stuff. And so I'm just wondering, I heard you had like a psychic story.
Oh my God, yeah. So that we were just talking about this the other day. So when I was just about to enter college, and I'd never been to a fortune teller before. And me and my cousin, we were in Sandusky, Ohio, of all places. We went to Cedar Point.
Cedar
There's like
Point.
a strip where they've got like, some haunted houses and some things like that. But there was like a random tarot card fortune teller like sign in a window. And we had seen it there the previous year. We come back this year, like, yeah, we should do that. Let's go there and find out how much it is. And we we just happened. It was weird. We just happened to have like maybe $75 between the two of us. It was $50, and it was like an old lady when we get in, and it's just like a normal house. She's smoking like Pall Mall 100s in there, and one of us can get a reading. My cousin doesn't want anything to do with it. He's kind of like old school Italian. Like he's there for the ride. Like he doesn't want anything to do with this paranormal stuff that I'm into. And so I sit down and she's like, some kind of Eastern European accent. And she's very like, she doesn't seem like she's taking it seriously at all, really. She's kind of just kind of throwing these things away. And so I never really thought that any of it was like the truth. And then I started thinking about like 10 years ago. Well, she told me, I asked her what I was going to do because I wanted to be an actor. And I was just about to go to college to be an actor. Right. So that was like all my big questions. She's like, you're not going to be an actor. You're going to be in the club and bar business. And she's like, you're going to spend most of your time selling and dealing with bar owners and club owners. And so you guys both know for the last 10 years, I've been in the beverage industry. So that never really clicked. I was like, clubs. And I was like, who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I over here? Ricky Martin? I'm not gonna be in a club. I'm like clubs, I'm not into that. And so then it starts to click. Some of these things when they do that, they're a little broader, but they're within the realm. And then she tells me my true love will be blonde, and I'll have 4 blonde children. And so you guys both know that I'm now with a blonde. I'd never, and that was another thing. I had never been, blondes were never my type. I was a brunette guy my whole entire life. So here's another throwaway. Blondes, no way. So this is just out of my head. I myself have 2 blonde children, and now my girlfriend now has 2 blonde children. We're going to be moving in together, next month. And she tells me I'm going to live to 93. That was her other thing. And so now all these things, I'm like, I'm going to die tomorrow. There's no way. I'm not in the club industry. I don't like blondes, 4 kids. Yeah, right. I don't want any kids. And now at 41 years old, I'm sitting here and I'm like, whoa. So we just were like talking about this last week. I was sitting down. I'm like, this is really weird. And we left and we didn't think anything of it. But I've got the love of my life is blonde hair. We've got 4 blonde kids. I do deal with bars every single day.
Yeah.
And do you think you're going to live to 93?
Yeah.
Here's what's weird. I've got 2 grandmothers right now. They're already 90. My grandfather that passed away when I was like a little kid, he was 95.
Wow.
So I don't know. I got a lot of people that lived a long time. I've got a couple that only made it to like 75. Who knows? I don't feel like a pillar of health. I'm just trying to like live longer than like medical science can keep up, like you're gonna find a cure for fatness, right, guys? Ozempic.
What does a 93-year-old bitch look like and act like? I wonder. You're a whippersnapper.
It's a head in a box.
Yeah, I have a very hard time with somebody like giving somebody an expiration date. Like
that was very weird. But her whole thing was, she's like, you're gonna live. She said, you're going to be nervous about dying all the time. She goes, you think about it now. And I did. I've always been like that. I'm like, I'll be dead. I can't. I have OCD. So I obsess over all kinds of stuff. And so she was like, you'll be worried about that you're going to die all the time, but you're going to live a very long life. And then I asked, Like, well, what's a long life? And she goes, you'll live past 93 years old. And I was like,
Wow, that's
and then
very
I went, shit.
specific.
That's what I said. So now we got to check it out. You guys got to live longer than me, so we can see if 93 is the number.
Yeah, I never
Well,
got
I'm
that
younger
promise.
than you, but I don't know if I can.
Can we hold
Gotta
out
hold
for
out.
Mitch?
Gotta hold out.
I plan on
know.
I plan on checking out in my 80s. I don't know, like something
got a
about like
plan?
just getting older. Like I
Oh,
want to be in my 90s and every day being like, is today the day? I guess I could do that now, but like when you're older, I don't know. Like maybe I'll be enjoying my life in my 80s and I'll be like, I got years left. I'm not sure, but I have this like feeling in my mind where I'm like, 80s. If I make it to my 80s, I like life well lived. Good job. I did it. You know?
Well, and then like you get that like prediction, and if you put yourself in Mitch's shoes, well, I'm gonna jump out in front of that bus and save that kid, and I live until I'm 93. I'm gonna do this because I live until I'm 93. At least 93.
it was very irresponsible of her to say that because
Right.
I honestly I
Yeah.
didn't believe any of it because of what she said. It
Right.
just seemed, and she wasn't very sincere about all of it. It was like almost
Right.
like it was like coming to her. I was like, this is fake bullshit. But then
Yeah.
like I look at it now and I'm like, maybe it was just like it came to her so easily that it was like almost like the gift of her. It almost seemed like wasted to give it to a 19-year-old idiot.
Right.
And maybe it was
She's
the
like,
other. It was like the other way. Like, yeah, let's get out of here, boy.
I don't give a shit. Yeah.
Yeah, 93. What are you gonna do?
93. Yeah, I only get to be 75.
Yeah, like she was jealous of me having like a good life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know.
Just
I
throw
don't.
it away.
This guy doesn't eat right. Piece of shit. Get on a treadmill, kid.
You don't need to. You're gonna live until you're past 93.
93, yeah.
I don't know, guys. I feel like that's way too long, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well,
So
are there
far,
any other
even if
stories
she
you want to share, Mitch?
I got that one. The last house I lived in before I built the new house was haunted. And I don't know if it was haunted though, or if it's like, you guys ever feel like that? Jess, I think you've said this before when I heard some of the shows that you have like maybe relatives or just spirits that like follow you around always, and they're like not scary. So I think that was like a thing where I would always see like an old lady in my old house. Only like when I would get up in like the middle of the night to like go to the bathroom or like check on the kids or something like that, I would walk back into the bedroom. It was always in a certain room or rooms, and it was always like an old lady. When I would see her, I wouldn't get scared. It was weird. It was like almost like comforting in a weird way, and it wouldn't scare me. And I just like, oh, it would almost like you're in like a dream state. Like, oh, that's great grandma.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
that's so
then
and
you can go to
so.
bed.
Yeah, your soul recognizes that soul, and like it's not scary.
Yeah, and I would just see that like in the room, and then I would turn back and it would be gone. I'm like, all right, and then I would just go to bed. Like that was like not scary at all.
Yeah.
But I would see it. But it's always. But that was like a more vivid, like face and stuff. Like I could see like facial features and hair, and I knew that it was like an old woman. That ghost at the Salem Inn, like that thing was way different.
I'm guessing that the ghost at the Salem Inn is actually an entity and was never alive. That's my guess.
Yeah.
Usually when there's like, when something elicits like such horrible fear, I feel like it's more of an entity, and it's if
demonic.
it gives you, well, I don't necessarily believe like demons, whatever. I do believe in very negative things. I guess you could call them demons if you want, but like, but yeah, they're more demonic, they're more negative, and they were never alive, and they feed on that fear, they feed on terrifying you, that sort of thing. And it's it wasn't a human being. It has no empathy. It has no experience living, all of that. It's creepier than that. And so like that's the hard part, when people are playing, which you were in room 17, I'm guaranteeing that people were playing with Ouija boards in there, opening up portal after portal after portal.
Oh yeah.
And like, it's dangerous. That's so dangerous. Again, I think I said this in a past podcast. If you play with a Ouija board and you're not putting protections in place, even tarot cards, like anything like that, where you're trying to connect, doing a seance, anything like that, trying to connect to the other side without putting spiritual protection in place, you're opening up your door. You're literally kicking open your door and be like, anybody wants to come in, come in. And like anybody who's standing there can come in, and it could be anybody. Like you don't know what neighborhood you just opened your door into. Like terrifying. Don't do it.
That thing was like, I've never felt like that before in my life. And I've had dreams and stuff. You know, you have dreams where you can't talk.
Yeah.
You know, you try to scream and like nothing comes out. But that was like real life. Like I was literally terrified to the point where I couldn't speak.
Yeah.
And you went in there and just like Jess was saying with like the Ouija boards and all that stuff that happened beforehand, but you went in there with a lot of energy, like
anxiety. I was so
anxiety.
Neither one of us wanted to be like, I'm like, I really don't want to see it. Like, cool, we like Halloween. All right, great. I want to get like a chicken pot pie and like a beer and chill out. You know what I mean? Like I want to go have a lobster roll and chill out after this. Like I don't want to go back to my room and freak out. Like, hey, awesome that they have a soaking tub, but I don't want this entity.
Being choked by some invisible entity wasn't high on your list, Mitch?
I just also wouldn't get. I'd be like, I'm not getting undressed in here.
All that it did feel like you just felt like you were watched the whole entire time you were in there. And I'm telling you, people were walking by that room while we were staying there, you know, just the one day, and that people would walk by like, oh my God, it's freezing. Right. You would just get the chills walking by the room. And the funny thing, we ended up staying there a few years later, but not in the same. They had like 3 different buildings in a different building, like across the way. But we had to walk. That room. But we had we stayed 2 more times actually. We stayed on the bottom floor. Well, you know that 17 was on like the 2nd or 3rd floor. But we walked back up to walk by 17 again, and it wasn't occupied. They were like remodeling or something, and it was still freezing cold when you walk by. I mean, this is like 6-7 years later. It was
living the nightmare.
Something's happened. Yeah, we did. We went back. We liked Salem was cool. I'm a history guy. You know, I love Salem history. Like American history is cool to me. So
for sure. No, I agree. I love Salem and I love it at Halloween time, but I like to go in September because you don't have like the full October crowd. Yeah. So like I went the first week of October like 2 years ago, and that was awesome because it wasn't like a ton of people. I also like to go in July because it's all still spooky and I'm spooky around. So I was like, yeah, I'll go anytime. But it's really cool and beautiful too.
Yeah, I like New England a lot. You know, like if I was going to stay in a place where it snowed still, you know, I'm getting older, more things are happening. Like I'm not as I was always Halloween was my number one holiday. Now that I'm older and I got kids, like I'm like, I love Christmas. You know, I'm getting soft. I'm definitely getting softer. I'm getting older. You're gonna see me. You know, I will live till I'm 93 because I'm gonna be in like Boca Raton in like 4 years. I'm gonna start up. I'm gonna petition for Big Ditch South and just go sell beer in Fort Lauderdale.
At 93, Arbor Day might be your favorite holiday.
Yeah, I'm just getting softer and softer. Oh, Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
I'm just dressed like a giant baby.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Mitch. I appreciate you sharing.
I mean, maybe we should start with Santa Claus. Sorry, we talked over each other there.
No, that's okay. What were you saying, Jess?
Oh, I said maybe we should start with Santa Claus before we like jump straight to Cupid. Maybe like lose a few brain cells before you go to Cupid. I don't know.
Yeah.
We like Christmas the best, and then you can put on the diaper and
and the wings. 93-year-old fat Cupid.
Yeah. Or like, the whole like New Year's father, what is it? The old man coming with his baby. That can be, you, right?
That's Father Time, right?
Father Time. I thought it was that, but then I was like,
there's a New Year's baby too. I don't know. Yeah. I was trying to watch all those old Rankin Bass. Like Rudolph's. There's one with like Father Time.
Yeah.
Oh, well, now I had to relive this. I had to relive the Salem Inn. I'm scared again, guys. Hopefully, this thing's not going to come and get me.
Well, so I mean, we're at the club that we practice at. Do you remember that glass just flew off the table that one time, out of nowhere? And so actually, last week when I was out there by myself, because we were playing for listeners, we were playing a game where it was a guessing game, and so one person leaves the room, and it was completely dark because the club is closed. And so I left the room and everybody else is in the other room and I'm all by myself in the dark, like out there in the club. And I mean, like, I was fine, but I was just like, there are spirits in this place. Like,
for
could
sure.
feel them. Like,
those are like old warehouses and stuff from early 1900s buildings.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that
Yeah.
it's funny that you said that, Jess, because I went out for the guessing game. I don't usually go out, right?
Right.
Usually, and when we do, it's not on a day that the whole place is closed.
Closed, right.
Right. So I went out there and I wasn't like creeped out, but I definitely felt like someone was out there.
Yes, watching you. Yes.
Right.
Like,
and I even went around the corner and kind of looked. I'm like, maybe someone's, because they were setting up for an event the next day.
I did the same thing.
That's so weird. And like, we didn't talk about this until now.
No. I did the same thing. I walked around and I was like, oh, there must be somebody here.
Yeah.
Nobody was there.
You went you go to the other room?
Well, I stayed away from the bar.
Dark room.
Like, just kind of went around the corner because, like,
the other way.
We were told, stay away from the bar. Stay away from the bar. There's some cameras.
That was the one thing Mark. That was the one thing Mark told me. Don't let anybody near the bar. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to.
But yeah.
Well,
he's like,
and also make sure the door is locked. And,
jiggle. Give it a good,
good tug.
Give it a good tug. Give the door a good tug. All right, I'll tug it. Don't stop breathing on my neck.
Yeah.
Stop breathing on my shirt, mister.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
all those buildings, though, like, you know, being in this side of the industry, like, for, you know, 30 plus years, and like doing shows in, you know, old theaters and stuff. Like, I worked at Jiva for almost 10 years, and we would be in Jiva with nobody else in Jiva Theater. Now that place has got ghosts. We spent the night there in the basement one time, and it was we was just like a group of us. We did it. We were younger. This was like years and years ago, and we had improv with, you know, we would do like I said, hour and a half long improvised plays. And so we were like trying to get like costumes and like props and stuff, because we had props and all that stuff. You know, we just got to be like 3 o'clock in the morning. We're like, let's just sleep on these couches. And then we would play. We played this game called Murderer all the time, which is like hide and go seek, but in pitch black. And so we played it in there. It was so scary. There's like,
that is terrifying.
There's like dungeons and stuff down there. There's like sub basements.
Jeez.
Wow. Well, theaters are usually haunted. Again, there's a lot of energy there, so that makes sense. And then you mix it with all the empaths and forget it. No, that makes sense. But yeah, I was trying to think of like what happened that day at class when that glass just like flew off.
Yeah.
And we
poor energy, probably. Like, that was like, I was like, everybody, we were, you know, what's weird is that we were coming in there all the time and like spilling all of our baggage at that time. And that was like at the beginning of like getting to know each other. We're like, what kind of shitty stuff happened to you today?
Yeah. I don't remember. We were talking about something happened. We were just all standing around and that glass just like.
Was that yours? Was that yours, glass? Was it Tito? Was Tito there?
No, Tito wasn't there. It was I think it was just like the original crew, and I don't know whose glass it was at all.
It was just a pint glass, right?
Yeah,
it was a pint glass. Yeah,
I think it was
on
Lori's.
a high top. It's probably Lori's, and it was a high top on the high top, and it was like the middle of the high top. It wasn't like on the edge. It wasn't anywhere like it could just like fall off. It literally just was like flew off, and like. I watched it. My eye, like I was watching the table, and it was just like gone. And I was like, that glass just flew. It just flew. And like, did you see it? Did you see it? And they're like, I saw it. I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy. I saw the glass fly. It was nuts.
Like, it was like deafening silence, like right afterwards, because we were all like just talking, and it was like, what?
Yeah.
So weird.
That was nuts. And then we named the ghost Fred or something. It was Fred. Don't piss off Fred.
It's so weird that like your brain tries to like immediately come up with a reason for that happening. And I think they said, I was like, it was just probably, you know, tilted or something, you know
wet.
What I mean?
Like it was floated. It was wet.
Yes, it was wet. That was what it was.
And I was like, it wasn't wet.
That's what it was. I was like, it was all wet. It's condensation just slid off. But that wasn't, no.
Because that's what
And
happens.
it went so fast. It wasn't even like, it's just like, because if it was wet, I could see it float like this way. I'm like, oh, that glass is gonna fall. Because I was like watching, like, I don't know like why I was watching over there, but like I was spaced out that way. And I was like, it would have floated, and it
Yeah.
didn't. It literally was just like, like we were in a group, we were in a circle.
Can you imagine, like, so
yeah.
the ghost of that place was like an accountant or something like that with zero sense of humor, and now it's got to stay in there. You know, like, yeah, I'm sick of these fart jokes. I can't take it anymore. It's not funny to me. You guys stink.
This is the worst. Yeah. And that's their personal hell. So they were a bad accountant.
Our terrible jokes.
So Nick, you said that you had a story, and I would love to hear it.
Okay. Yeah, we can do mine. My story begins when I left my mom's house. I had gone over to visit because my father, her husband of 63 years, recently passed away, and my mom wasn't taking it so well. She needed the support of her loved ones, and I was more than willing to go visit and keep her company. But it was getting late. My mom lives in the suburbs, tidy lawns, plenty of neighbors. Even though it was near 11 p.m. when I left, the streets were extremely lit by the streetlights, who always had safety and ease of mind at heart. These lights only lit the road, though, and glancing through the streets, the houses were cast in an eerie shadow. Even a rather safe, charming little neighborhood can seem spooky and uninviting when it casts in shadow. I admit I was terribly chilled. Sliding into my car, I revved the engine and waved to my mother, who was standing in the doorway, wrapped comfortably in a warm shawl. She waved back, her old and fragile arms shaking. I saw her mouth, "Be careful," and I smiled. Backing out of the driveway, I turned out of the neighborhood, decided to take the back way, the shorter way home tonight. In hindsight, that might not have been a good idea. I lived a significant way away, out in the middle of the country in an old farmhouse I grew up in, which my father had left in my name when he and mom had moved out, into a much smaller place and easy to care for and more affordable, and to be social. He, my father, had always told me, growing up, don't go out at night and always be aware of the devils. He was a strong believer in anything and everything paranormal. Very superstitious man, and I always had to resist the urge to laugh at his words, but I knew he meant well. Driving down the dark country roads, there was no street lights, and the paved road was cracked and filled with potholes. The fields on either side of the road were empty, just blank stretches of overgrown grass and unintended shrubbery. The dark outline of the trees in the woods could be seen looming across the fields on the shadowy horizon. One might have thought a deer or two once in a while in those fields would jump out, but not tonight. The moon offered little light, and the sky rolled with dark, threatening clouds, ready to burst with rain or storm at any moment. Sure enough, a few moments later, the low grumble of thunder sounded, heavy and long. However, no rain fell just yet. Much to my pleasure, I hated driving at night and in the rain. And putting those two together would be ending badly. I just knew it. Accompanied by the occasional roll of thunder, I started to feel a little bit more anxious. Can't explain it. I just felt shaken up, probably because it was night and it could start raining at any moment. Or maybe it's because I had been reading too many ghost stories and thinking of too many legends, and tonight seemed to reflect the mood of those stories I read almost obsessively. To try and calm myself, I flicked on my car's radio and attempted to find a station that came in clearly. Nothing. Weird. The white noise and static of the blank stations was doing nothing to appease my anxiety. I gripped the steering wheel tightly as more thunder boomed from the sky. Aggravated, I forcefully shut off the radio, gritting my teeth, glancing down at the dashboard, and I noticed I was nearly out of gas. Oh my God. I searched for the road for a sign of gas, and I was scanning the side of the road. I noticed, in the corner of my eye, two figures walking on the side of the road, shrouded in shadow. They were walking slowly, one turned around, walking backward, his or her thumb sticking out. Felt compelled to pull over and give them a ride. Found my hands turning the wheel slightly, but I pulled back, realizing how stupid it would be for me to accept two random strangers into my car in the middle of the night on a backcountry road. I sped up and past them, trying not to look at them as I did so, though I felt oddly intrigued by them. As I focused on the road ahead, it started drizzling, dropping my mood another level or two. Along with the rain, the thunder seemed louder and closer, and the storm was moving in. A few seconds passed until I gave into my compulsion to look at the two figures, and I glanced in my rearview mirror. It seemed as if the two were walking faster, and the one no longer had his thumb out, but it had to be my imagination. How would I be able to tell if they were walking faster or not? It was rainy and dark. Looking back at the road, I almost missed a sign that alerted me of a gas stop up ahead. A sigh of relief passed my lips, and I slowed down, looking for any indication of the stop, pushing the thought of the two figures out from my head. Soon I was pulling into the gas station, slowly as the rain started to pick up. Shut off my car, and shuffled out the metal shell, and glanced over my shoulder, still not being able to shake that nervous feeling. I stood under the light of the overhang, working the pump, which seemed so overcomplicated in the dim light. In my mind, not being able to focus on the simple task. The rain picked up even more, heavier and louder against the concrete of the gas stop. I had a horrible feeling that just wasn't shaking. Maybe it was the bitter cold night air. Suddenly, the overhang lights on the gas stop started flickering wildly, a couple going out altogether. It seemed as if the temperature dropped to 20 degrees, and as I glanced around, a sinking feeling started to blossom in my stomach. As if in slow motion, I turned around, facing back towards the road, the long, lonely road, and saw what I expected to see there. But even as much as I knew what I'd see, I still felt the drop of my stomach and the color draining from my face, and I breathed a sharp, cold breath forcefully as I almost caught it in my throat. Across the street, the two figures were standing facing me. They started crossing the street slowly, surely, and I fumbled with that gas pump. It had only been a few minutes, but it seemed as if the gas pump was taking its precious time. I was shaking hard now as the thunder boomed once more, and I looked back. The figures were now at the entrance of the gas stop, and my breath was quick and shallow as I blindly shoved the pump back into its holder, not being able to tear my eyes away from the two figures. As they drew closer, I became more frantic, even though now, as I walked into the flickering light of the overhang, I saw that they were just two teenagers. They looked ragged and frigid and soaked from the rain. I straightened up a bit, still terrified, but another compulsive feeling similar to the one I was experiencing in the car was bubbling. I felt obligated to talk to these two, though I insisted to myself to just drive away, not to risk anything. They were extremely close now. At the next pump, when I slid into my car, shaking wildly and fumbling for my keys, cursing myself as I dropped them on the floor. Damn! Leaning down, I swiped them up, sat back up, cold, sickening feeling as I came face to face with one of the teens, who had his hand on my window, knocking slowly but forcefully. I rolled down the window a bit, just a bit, no bigger than to allow maybe a small child's hand through. Before I spoke, he spoke first, the other figure just standing in the background, still. But I could see something of a grin there on his pale face. Can you give us a ride into town? We missed the bus, and I don't have a ride. He spoke slow, and something about his voice made me shiver. Cold chill swept over my spine. He opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Clearing my throat, I glanced at the dashboard and the keys in my hand. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to town, I stuttered, keeping my eyes down, not at the kids. However, the teenager knocked harsher and made me jump a little as he insisted another time for a ride. I told him no once more and looked up, trying to seem intimidating, which seemed silly, trying to seem intimidating to a child. But a horrible, chilling sight greeted me. I looked the kid right in the eyes and gasped sharply, my back hitting my seat as I went to back away. He had eyes. Oh, he did, but they were blacker than night, pitch black, no discernible pupils, and no white whatsoever showing, just pure black, deep, brooding, and surprisingly intriguing. But my fear got the better of me, and I quickly turned the key, and my engine revved to life. I thanked God, which I had never ever done before tonight. My car had not stalled, and I went to pull away, and the kid banged on my window with a pale fist, screaming for a ride. I took off speeding down the road, apologizing to my father again and again. I had laughed at him, never took his warning seriously. After a few more minutes, I pulled into my driveway, right into my lawn in front of my porch. I didn't want to spend any more time outside than I already had, and I jumped out of the car, leaving the door open, and ran inside, slamming the door and locking it, even going as far to put a chair in front of the door in case someone or something tried to get in. Sinking into that chair in front of the door, I shivered uncontrollably and started to cry, hiding my face in my hands as two dark figures stood at the end of my driveway.
Oof.
Yeah. Black-eyed kid stories are so terrifying. And have you ever heard the ones, well, we'll talk about this one first. Mitch, what do you think about it?
Oh, so I when you guys were younger, did you like, drive around with your friends? Anything ever happened to you like that was weird when you were younger, like when you were driving around? I had an
Yeah.
instance where we had like a ghost or something while we were driving around. So I think it brought me back to like those feelings
Yeah.
Ooh.
of just like, and you grew up kind of similar to me, right, Nick? Like in the country, right?
Mhm.
Isn't that where you were?
Well,
Like
I
in the
grew up in
sticks?
Long Island, but yeah, I mean, there was
Oh, you
definitely
were in
some
Long Island.
points. Like a lot of my friends lived like in the woods. It brings up feelings, it brings up memories, right?
Being a
Um,
kid and being scared,
yeah,
driving around, or like just having those um, roads with like nobody on them,
yeah,
nobody to like say, "Please help, Mister."
yeah, right,
So
right.
we Halloween weekend, my freshman year in college, we went to my girlfriend's house. My friends, Kayla and Sam, we were inseparable. It was the three of us. We went to Kayla's house, her dad's house in Oneonta, and we were driving around. It was Halloween night, and um, this other car was driving past us and didn't have his lights on. So she flashed him to be like, hey, like with her high beams, hey, turn your lights on. You know, this car, it was just like the urban legend where they tell you not to do that.
Yeah.
Immediately turns on their lights, revs their engine, turns around and starts chasing us.
Jeez.
Chasing us. And I was like, no good deed goes unpunished. Like, it was
Right.
so terrifying. They chased us for probably 30 minutes. And I was like, Kayla, if you know where, I had the wherewithal at 17 years old to be like, if you know where the local police station is, you have to drive there. But it was, they were chasing us everywhere. She even took us through a graveyard. She was like, nobody knows this graveyard. Like, we'll cut through it. They won't find us. They were on the other side of the graveyard waiting with
Jeez.
their lights off. It was
Oof.
so
Oof.
scary. I was like, these people are going to murder us. We are three teenage girls in
Oh,
a
no.
car, like, oh my God. And like Sam's crying in the background, and like I'm like, everything's fine. Just get to a police station.
Right.
Like, please. So that's what she did. She found us, she drove us downtown. They were even following us downtown and like the crowds and everything, because it's Halloween weekend. And
Mhm.
she pulled into the police station and they kept going.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. So it was just for our listeners, tell your teenagers, and if you are a
Don't-
teenager,
Yeah.
Don't play that game.
yeah,
And now it's easier to
drive,
find them. The police
drive to a police
stations.
station if you're ever being followed. Yeah,
Yeah.
call 911. We didn't have, we had cell phones, but I don't think that they were working. Like, it was, we had flip phones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the middle of nowhere.
Razors.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
it was the middle of nowhere.
I had a beeper and stuff like that when I first started driving, and so again, like the nervousness of the reading that story, something similar. And the reason I picked this one was there was another story I had read on the internet that was even closer to this one. It wasn't really a black-eyed child, but
Mhm.
a friend of mine were driving the back roads, and and we didn't know where we were. Sometimes we would just get in the car and just drive, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there was a guy on the side of the road hitchhiking. And we're like, we're not stopping. It was rainy and it was cold and we just went by. Well, like another mile down the road, there's a guy hitchhiking. And we're like, that's weird. Like no one, it's like back road. Who the heck goes on this road? Like
Yeah.
it hitchhikes. So like you go to the highway, you go somewhere, like whatever, something more populated. And we didn't like really think too much after that until we saw the guy a third time.
Oh God.
And then we knew that it was like this wearing kind of the same things. I'm like, what are the odds that three
That same
guys
guy.
on the same road in the middle of freaking nowhere have their thumb out hitchhiking?
It's a
Twilight Zone
ghost.
episode.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I grabbed this story, because and black-eyed children, like they are freaky, and like don't let them in. You hear all those things, and
Yeah,
there's
you hear
probably
the
half a
stories
dozen
of
that I could
when
have
the
chose
people
from.
that do let them in, they're not good stories. They're
Yeah.
bad. Absolutely.
So when I was a kid, I have a similar story, like not to derail this any
No,
further,
go
but
ahead.
like driving down a back road, right? Like we were looking for. So when I was a kid, I grew up in Williamson, which is all apple orchards,
Mhm.
and so we would party in those orchards. So we would try to find the entrance to where we would pull in. We're driving on this back road, and we couldn't find the entrance. it was Eaton Road. We couldn't find the way to like get into this party. Like we did it. We went up and down, back and forth on this road like 3 or 4 times. Then we saw a girl. So we're like, oh, perfect. Like she must be going to the party or whatever, you know? And so we start driving and getting up close, and then it just seemed off. We're like, that's not a girl, like that's a woman.
Mhm.
And then as we got closer, we're like, I can kind of see through that woman a little bit. Like
Oh,
that doesn't look good at all. And she looks super tall. Like that looked like a very large woman on top of it. So we started I was like, let's just go the other way. So we start to like turn around and bang right next to the window. And now he's flooring it, and it's keeping up with the window, and there's 3 guys in this car, and
No.
we are screaming, and we never forgot that story. We'll still to this day once in a while be like, remember that?
Yeah.
The ghost that we saw on that road? Like we definitely saw a ghost on that road. And we went back there for another party another time, and we heard kids giggling,
Oh,
like children
no.
giggling. And I was like, this
No.
road's haunted. We never
Yeah.
went back there again. We said it. To this day, we're like, man, that road is super haunted.
yeah.
You're gonna have to tell me what road that is, because I drive in Williamson sometimes and I just don't want
I think it was like Eaton Road. I'm pretty sure that's the road. It was like a road that was like in the
God.
middle. It was like in the middle of the, it connects 2 other
God.
country roads. But it was just very scary. I remember windows were open. It was late summer, early fall. Like, what is that? Was that a girl? Maybe she'll know. And she did not know where we were supposed to go.
She knew that she was going to
She
drag
was
you to
running
hell.
35 miles per hour outside the car.
She sounds athletic. Yeah.
Yeah, we were like, no. Go.
Well,
just drive forever.
You definitely want to tell your kids not to pull over for anybody, right? So
No, yeah, exactly.
I have one more.
Oof.
I have one more little thing that you just reminded me of, Mitch. So I had a friend whose dad, he's the typical Good Samaritan, so like he's driving down the road, sees someone broken down, he gets out and helps them, right? That's flat tire, all that kind of stuff. So one day there's this lady on the side of the road, and she had pretty obvious look to him like a flat tire, and he was slowing down and then realized he was really late to where he was going, and he just had a weird feeling. So he decided not to stop, which was like, he said it's like for his dad it was hurting so much because he wanted to stop, but then is like the first time he never did it, he always stopped. And he ended up being a witness for a crime because a person did stop, and it was a robbery, and unfortunately that person got shot.
Oh my God.
And it could have been his dad. So
yeah, it could have been him, but he had a bad feeling.
He just had a bad feeling, and so moral of the story: don't stop for anybody.
Yeah,
keep driving.
Keep driving.
And if they start running at about 35 miles per hour,
that's a clue.
It's not human. It's a clue.
That's
not human.
Yeah. You're better off not stopping to begin with. Ugh.
That whole summer was very weird. Like there was ghosts. That was like a ghost. And then another time we were driving and horses were just like next to us. Like there was like 10 horses on like Main Street. We were like, are these horses? Like, am I this? We should maybe not ever drink and drive because I'm pretty sure these are horses.
Horses, just.
and then we pulled up to a Pizza Hut that same summer, and there was a clowns in a car.
No,
like just like 4 clowns, and we were like,
no.
Really
I would have pulled out. I mean, I wouldn't go to Pizza anyways because it always made me vomit. But also, clowns in a car, clowns anywhere. No, thank you.
9:30 at night, 3 clowns in like a van.
No, they're out to like murder someone or eat somebody. I don't. No, they weren't looking for pizza. They were going to eat children.
They were parked. I think they could have been eating. The horses was real weird though. We're just
That's
like, what?
Very strange.
We're just like looking over
nowhere.
Just
real horses.
Real horses just running down Main Street in that town,
God,
and we were like, well, we better get home because the horses are out.
That's awesome, Mitch. Well, I think we're gonna have to have you on the show again.
You got a lot of stories.
They're coming back to me. I got more.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. We're gonna have you. We'll have Mitch part 2.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Perfect.
Thanks for
Well,
being
Well,
on the
this
show,
is
Mitch. Really
yeah,
appreciate you
thank
sharing.
you. This was a great episode. And thank you for listening, everybody. We appreciate it. And yeah, we will until next time. What is it? We drop every 2 weeks, every other week. Yeah.
Every
Until
2
next
weeks,
time.
we'll
Thanks
be
for
dropping an
listening.
episode.
Like, subscribe, share. Please share with your friends. If you like our stuff, share our stuff. We appreciate that so much. Word of mouth is great.
Yeah. And if you don't like our stuff, then share your story so we can tell your story and be better.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Constructive
Be a
criticism.
part of the solution.
Yeah.
Positivity.